When I moved to the United States from the Netherlands, one of the things I missed was going to a snack bar. Back home, you see them on practically every street corner, where in the States, they're basically concession stands at a stadium, at an amusement park, or even a bowling alley. I think everyone has a go-to order at the snack bar. For me, it is a frietje oorlog, French fries with peanut sauce, mayo, and sometimes onions, and a frikandel speciaal with curry, mayo, and fresh onions. For my dad, he always orders a Bamischijven with his fries, and that's what we're making today. Hi, I'm Toine and welcome to my kitchen. If you're new to this channel, I focus on cooking foods from my home country, the Netherlands, and some of its former colonies such as Indonesia. Indonesia used to be a Dutch colony, and a lot of Dutch people moved there from the Netherlands for business or other reasons. And they moved back after Indonesia declared its independence in the 40s. When they were looking for a snack, they didn't really recognize what was available in the snack bars, and that's why the Bamischijven was invented somewhere in the 60s. Now they have a Dutch snack that is deep fried with the flavors of Indonesia. My wife and I had bami for dinner last night, and this is what we didn't eat. So we're going to use 500 grams of the leftover bami for this recipe. We're going to start now by measuring out the bami. I have a glass bowl on my scale, which was tiered, set to 0. And we're going to just add 187. Make sure I get enough of the meat also. 495, almost there. 518, it's close enough, right? Yeah, that's good. Additionally, for the filling, you will need 30 grams of all-purpose flour, 30 grams of butter, 200 milliliters of chicken stock, 1 tablespoon of ketjap manis, 1 teaspoon of gelatin powder, 1 teaspoon of sambal oelek, and 2 teaspoons of garam masala. For the breading, you will need 70 grams of all-purpose flour, 200 grams of plain breadcrumbs, I use panko, 2 teaspoons of garam masala, 1 teaspoon of paprika, and 2 eggs. You will also need oil for frying. Now I'm going to bloom my gelatin. I'm going to take 4 tablespoons of the chicken broth, put it in a small little bowl. 4, almost lost track. I'm going to add my gelatin on top, and I'm going to just stir it around. Now we're going to set it aside for about 10 minutes, which gives the gelatin a chance to absorb all the liquid and make like one big gelatinous mass. When you're adding gelatin powder to a liquid, make sure the liquid is cold. While we're waiting for that, I'm going to start making the roux. As with bitterballen and kroketten, you need something to kind of bind together the filling of the Bamischijven. And for that, we're making a roux, very similar to the bitterballen. We're going to start by melting the butter. I have this on low heat because you don't want to brown the butter, you just want to melt it. And we're almost there. Butter is melted. We are going to add the flour and we're going to whisk it together until it's all incorporated. Make sure that you get all the flour in the butter, and then let's keep cooking it for at least a minute because you don't want to have raw flour flavor in the roux. Of course, a croquette or a bitterbal has way more sauce or gravy or roux in it than a Bamischijven, because we just want to have enough to keep the noodles together. So that's why we don't use as much butter and flour as we did for kroketten or bitterballen. We're just looking for a blonde color right now, nothing too dark, but you do want to see little bubbles to make sure that you're cooking that raw flour flavor out of it. Okay, we're getting pretty close. So while we're waiting for that, I'm going to take the garam masala and whisk it into the broth. We're ready to add the broth. So I'm going to add all of this. Now we're going to increase the heat and whisk it until there are no more lumps of the flour in the broth. You can already smell the garam masala, and together with the chicken broth, it is very aromatic. Make sure that you get all the butter and flour from the bottom edge of the pan incorporated in the broth, and there can be no lumps. You can see that this is already thickening. That is the power of the roux. So now I'm going to add my sambal and my ketjap manis and stir that through. Now it's no longer blonde. It almost looks like peanut sauce actually, the color. I'm going to just wait until it starts bubbling a little bit, and then I'm going to turn off the flame, or in this case the induction cooker. Okay, little bubbles are forming. I'm going to take it off the heat, and now I'm going to melt the gelatin. If you're enjoying this video, please click the like and subscribe button. It will really help our channel. And if you want YouTube to notify you whenever we post a new video, click the bell. As you can see, the gelatin is fully bloomed. There really is no more liquid left in it. And over very low heat, I'm going to melt it in a pan. I have some cold water to the side here. If it turns out that there are still some granules, I can add a little bit of water to help dissolve those. You can see just a little bit of warmth and this starts melting right away. Starting out with a spatula, and I'll probably grab my little whisk at the end to make sure that everything is completely dissolved and melted. If you hear a little bit of the almost like a whistling noise, that is my pot on the induction burner. Okay, I think it is all melted, so I'm going to just use my whisk real quick. And it is. If you don't do this, you may end up with little like gel bubbles inside your roux, and you don't want that. All right, this is good. I'm going to turn it off, and now I'm going to mix it through the roux. I don't need to add any more heat to this because it's still plenty warm. I'm going to mix it through. Make sure there are no lumps. I grabbed a pair of tongs, and now it's time to mix the bami through the roux. Make sure we get all the vegetables and the noodles. Stir it through. Because the noodles are cold, it will already start setting the roux with the gelatin, which is good. Let me clean up the counter because we don't need these things anymore, and we'll be back in a minute. I have a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper, and I'm going to just dump the bami in the roux on the cookie sheet. And make sure we get it all. Now we're going to spread it out until it is about 2 centimeters thick. That's 3/4 of an inch. That's about how thick Bamischijven are. I'm making schijven, which are circular. If I cut them into square, they would be bami blokken. And if I made them into the shape of a bitterbal, it would be a bami ball. Bamischijven is what my dad eats, so that's what we're making. It doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle because we're going to cut it to size. So I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap and put it in the fridge for at least 2 hours, but preferably overnight. Make sure that you cover it, that no air can get to it. Okay. This is now going in the fridge. It's been 2 hours. I've taken the filling out of the fridge and I've removed the plastic wrap. And with a 7.5 centimeter, 3-inch cookie cutter, I'm going to cut discs out of this. 1, 2, let's see how many I can get. 3. Try to cut them as close together as you can. Going to remove the 6 discs that I cut out of here. Put on a piece of parchment paper. Look. Smells good. Guess I didn't cut through everything well enough on that one. Okay, You don't have to throw this away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this sit at room temperature, just warm up a little bit. That will make the roux softer. I can then basically turn it into a ball and shape it back out into a smaller rectangle, put it back in the fridge, and then cut some more. I'm going to just take this and put it on the table, let it get a little bit warmer. And now I'm going to set up my breading station. The breading station is always 3 pieces, flour, eggs, and breadcrumbs. So the flour is easy. We just dump it right in here, next to the eggs. And now the breadcrumbs. And I'm going to season these with the garam masala and paprika. So I'm going to mix it with a fork. You can use any seasoning you'd like that you think will go with bami, but I like pulling the flavors from the bami with the garam masala into the breading, and then a little paprika adds a little smokiness and just ever so slightly a red color. So I'm just using a little bit of seasonings, but if you like a heavily seasoned crust, you can add more as well. Okay, this is mixed. Now I'm going to beat the eggs. Putting on some gloves for breading, and I have a second cookie sheet with parchment paper on my right. That is the destination for the Bamischijven after I've breaded them. So first, just put it in the flour. Make sure you get the size as well. In the egg, turn it over, make sure it's on the sides. And now in the breadcrumbs. And I'm trying to use my right hand for the dry ingredients and my left hand for the wet ingredients, so the eggs. I'm gonna go for the second one. Some people bread the Bamischijven twice, like I do with my kroketten and my bitterballen. I kind of prefer a slightly thinner crust on a Bamischijven, so I only do it once. And we're going to continue on. You can already tell as they've been laying here at room temperature that the roux is starting to get a little softer. I can tell that as I push the breadcrumbs on the Bamischijven, so you have to act and move a little bit quickly, because once they get too soft, it's going to be impossible to bread them. All right, last one for now. Now, if you don't want to fry these up right away, you can actually just freeze them and then let them get hard, then individually wrap them. You can keep them in the freezer for a few months and then fry them up whenever you feel like it. You don't have to thaw them first. You just fry them for a few minutes longer. Which hand left? All right. So we have a good amount of breadcrumbs left, but we still have more Bamischijven to make with the rest of the roux. So most of this is going to be used up. Okay, I'm going to put this in the freezer, clean up here a little bit, and start heating up my oil for frying. I have a pan with neutral flavored oil on the stove or on my burner, and it is 350 degrees, 354. That's right where I want it to be. So on the left hand side I have my Bamischijven, clearly my oil on a burner, and then here I have an inverted rack on top of paper towel, and I have an aluminum lined cookie sheet underneath it. This is where the Bamischijven are going to go after they've been fried. I am going to use a spider to let the Bamischijven in the oil and take them out. So here we go. As always, be very careful when doing this. And we're going to fry them for around 5 minutes. They should be nice and golden brown. If you have a larger pot than this, you can easily fry 2 of them, but I kind of wanted to use the same pot that I used to make the roux in, so I'm only doing 1 at a time. It's been 2.5 minutes, so I'm going to very carefully turn it over and let it fry for another 2.5 minutes. Okay, it's been a total of 5 minutes. Let's take this one out. Let some of the oil drip off before you move it over to the rack. But it's got a nice golden brown color. So that looks exactly how I would expect it to look. Now let's add the next one. And again, be very careful when you add it to the oil. Okay. I will continue frying the rest of them up and I'll see you when I'm done. The last Bamischijf is almost done frying. Beautiful golden brown color. I'm going to move my pot and my burner out of the way so I can get a plate and taste one of the Bamischijven. Here's our finished Bamischijf. Nice and crispy. So I think it's too hot for me to hold in my hand, so let me use my fork to cut a little piece. Eet Smakelijk. Even though people eat Bamischijven with pinda sauce or chili sauce, I think it is flavorful enough. You don't need anything else. You get the garam masala warmth and the paprika in the crust, which is nice and crispy. And then you just have this beautiful bami flavor on the inside. The roux is not so much that you have this kind of saucy inside like you do in a croquette, right? You can see some of the liquid of the roux, but it is not a ton of it. You really get the texture of the bami. The noodles are not soggy, even though they've been cooked twice. I'm gonna have another bite. You can just see the bami, you can see the vegetables with a nice crunchy crust on the outside. So good. This is a fantastic way to use up your bami leftovers. Like I said earlier, you can either freeze them before you fry them, but we actually like to freeze them after they've been fried and then just heat them up in the oven. My bami recipe has ground meat in it, but you can make it with chicken as well. If you want to make a vegetarian version, just omit the ground beef from the recipe, add some more vegetables, and then use a vegetable stock to make the roux. And that way you can make this into vegetarian Bamischijven. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like and subscribe button and don't forget to share it with your friends. If you have any questions or memories about Bamischijven, please post them in the comments below. I will put the recipe with both metric and imperial measurements on my website, toineskitchen.com, and you can follow me on social media. If you make Bamischijven, I would love it if you can take a photo and post it on Instagram with the hashtag ToinesKitchen. I will share it in my story and on my website. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.